Hey guys, I finally did it. I beat Echidna after about 5 hours of prog or so, and this was Echidna normal. Both my characters are 1620, and I have to say that this one was definitely a very interesting prog because I actually progged half of it through pugs and then half of it through a group of friends. Not entirely static, we didn't have a full stack of 8, but for the most part, it was like, 7, 8. One of them was like one of the runs with my viewers. So it was a pretty good and interesting prog experience that I'd never experienced before. And overall, I actually had a ton of fun progging Echidna in pugs. Now, I'm not going to say that we got the furthest with our pugs. I think the furthest I got with my pugs was 137 mech, and then we hit the clash but then failed the stagger. But overall, I think that the people that I played with were very patient. They kind of didn't really yell at people for making mistakes. It was overall a very good experience. That might not be the experience for you, but luckily for me, that was what I experienced. And I think I went with 2 to 3 separate parties when I was doing pugs. And some of them were able to get further, some of them weren't. For me, my kind of philosophy and style of playing in progs is I try, especially with the recent raids, I try to get used to the attack patterns. And even if we're not progressing that far with the progs themselves, as long as I'm seeing the attack patterns over and over again, I'm having a good time. I'm learning a lot, and I'm thinking that there's a lot of value in that pug itself and that prog itself, even if we don't get the furthest down the line. Now, definitely with Echidna, a lot of people are saying it's very punishing, and I agree that it is definitely, in certain ways, more punishing than a raid like Theamine. But I think that that punishment really comes from the reliance on other party members, which in Theamine, it wasn't like that at all. And I also think that this punishment and this kind of feeling is just really bad during prog, but when we get to reclear, it's going to be even easier than Theamine itself, and I truly believe that. So that's my opinion. But when it comes to the general sentiment of the raid, there's been a lot of people on the forums, Reddit, talking about how Echidna is as difficult as Theamine or something like that. And I think that was kind of a more prevalent opinion on the first day or two. But I think since then, people have kind of walked it back and said, like, Echidna might not be the hardest, but it's definitely not as fun, or it's a little more bullshit or something like that, right? And I wanted to share my thoughts with you guys today. And I had a video from last night on my stream where we were talking about it, and I wanted to just show you all that in this video. As per usual, we do this every single night on twitch.tv/misoxhiro. So hopefully I can see you guys on my stream, but if not, hopefully I'll see y'all on the next video. Enjoy the clip. It just leaves zero leeway for mistakes. Basically just as punishing as any other raid. A lot of people are saying it's like not as like, and I kind of agree with it, right? There are just some situations where one person fucks up and then the entire party get wiped because of like charm or something, for example. But at the same time, you could kind of argue that now that I'm thinking about it, like, technically if you were better at sleep grenading those people, like, it would be better. I don't know. Like, I think it to a point you can mess up, but like it takes the skill of the rest of your party members to be able to make up for your kind of fuck up. On hard unit slave sleeps grenades for 0x shielded snakes, unless you're a class with stun or fear. It is true, but what I'm saying is, like, as long as you're not messing up like that much, right? Because like a lot of people are saying, like, if one person just fucks up real hard, like, it could cause it. Basically, one fuck up causes the wipe of the entire raid, right? But it's not really like that, because like, if you're like, in certain ways, if you're good enough, you should be able to sleep that person. And technically, if it's just one person, you shouldn't run out of sleep grenades. I don't know. But again, if they're fucking up that much on a raid, like, they probably would have been dead in any other raid. And if you're talking about Theamine hard prog, for example, if somebody's dying that early on in a raid, you probably don't have enough DPS to kill it at the end of the day. I think that later on, as we get stronger, it'll be definitely easier. but I wouldn't say like the raid itself, the prog, is that much more punishing than a raid like Theamine Hard or Theamine itself. I can see the hate comments now on YouTube with that take. I can definitely, I definitely can see it, right? But I don't think it's incorrect. I think that on prog day, if you're comparing Theamine Hard to Echidna, I think that if somebody died like that, unless your party is like juiced, Omega juiced, like it's probably just as punishing. But again, I'm not running Echidna hard either, so it's hard for me to say completely. Echidna normal, I think definitely easier than Theamine. That's 100% fact. I don't think anyone who actually cleared G4 suggests Echidna hard mode is harder. Probably a very short memory span since most people have know cleared Echidna hard mode within 3 days. Yeah, there's like zero possibility that Echidna is harder than Theamine, given the fact that like we just cleared it. Like people are literally out here re-clearing it, like not just like really like strong people, but like I say like there's a good number of pugs who are re-clearing it already, both normal and hard, on day like 2, 3, something like that. I think like it can be a little bit more jarring is what it is, because what ends up happening is Echidna is a very how to say it? It's very not polarizing. Polarizing is not the right term, but it's like an kind of like an all or nothing type of situation, I guess. Because like in Theamine, right? If somebody dies, you can keep going. Will you clear that raid? Probably not if you're pretty early on in your prog, right? But you can still keep going. But, you know, you go for another 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. One other person dies, another person drops. Then eventually you, like, you know, like, all right, I gotta read, right? But Echidna, it's kind of like when one person turns, he swipes half your fucking party, and it's like, okay, well, I guess we're done. I guess we're done, right? So it's like you can really easily tell with Echidna when you need to fucking stop and re. Whereas with Theamine, it's like you can technically just keep going and keep the prog going, right? Which, yeah, you probably won't clear that run, but you can still keep the prog going. But the thing is, once that person stops dying and like stops getting turned, then you're probably getting further much more consistently than in Theamine. Carol into Echidna with full 1640 Transcendence. For hard mode, yeah, for sure. But for normal mode, I think people probably were around the same item level. But at the same time, again, I just don't think it's that much harder than Theamine. Like, I don't think it's harder than Theamine. Because, like, again, Theamine literally took people weeks to fucking clear. Theamine hard, literally, there are people who still haven't cleared Gate 4 yet. People who have been trying to clear Gate 4 with Theamine every single week and have not cleared it yet. And I don't think that's going to be the case for Echidna. People are saying it's just as hard as Theamine. I don't consider Theamine Gate 4 part a gate is just extra. Sort of, yeah. But I think even with Gate 3, right? I think a lot of people for Gate 3 Theamine, it took them like a week or 2 to clear. I'm trying to think, how long did it take me to prog Theamine Gate 3? I definitely think I prog Theamine Gate 3 for much longer than Echidna, that's for sure. Like, how long did it take for you guys to prog Theamine Gate 3, right? And compare that to how long it took you to prog Echidna Gate 2. 2 weeks? 1 week? Exactly. Exactly. I don't think you can say that Echidna is harder than Theamine just by that fact. Echidna's harder to download patterns. I think her attack patterns are harder to download than Theamine for sure, right? There's still moves where I'm like, I don't know how to fucking dodge this. But the thing is, they're not like Theamine, where like literally every single, like half its attacks just fucking one-shot you, right? Because like while it's harder to discern, like to get the attack patterns down, they're not as punishing as the Theamine attack patterns. 8 hours for G3 itself, and Echidna was like 3.5. I mean, Theamine is definitely a lot more of a Trixian dummy than Echidna is. But the thing is, I think Echidna probably has less HP than Theamine, is my guess. So that's why, like, Theamine, like, imagine if Theamine was as mobile as Echidna, that would be fucking hell. I don't know how anybody would fucking be able to clear that boss with like front and back attackers. I mean, again, I do think that it's just a little bit more jarring because it feels like you're not progressing with Echidna that much, whereas with Theamine, it's a little bit more like you're progressing more and more each time. Because with Theamine, you can lose one member of your party, two members of your party, three members of your party, right? And you still keep going. But for Echidna, literally at some point, if you lose enough members of your party and the fucking like blue like shit lands at like 7 and fucking 3 o'clock or something, you're not doing that. You're not getting through that, right? So it's like the stop points of when you know have to is much more apparent than Theamine, which makes it in our mind kind of seem like it's harder to prog in Echidna because we're not progressing as quick. We're all it's like, well, it takes us forever to get to like 212 mech or something, for example, right? But then in Theamine, it's like, oh well, we got to that part like pretty early on. Well, it's because you could keep progressing, but technically you still don't have the DPS with the amount of people in your party to actually clear the raid.